let's jump into some gameplay. So we actually have an example of group gameplay. I'm like, that word is just not as much.
When you said dry examples, I thought you were going to break out the wine. But let's.
Well, I have some,
Maybe I
so
should.
cheers.
But yes, so we have some group gameplay, mid game actually.
Yeah, mid-ish game.
We can probably just comment on it as
Sure.
well, what we're seeing and how it's different from what people have seen in the beta specifically.
Sure, you want.
Sure, yeah, I can go. So if you played to the Vermilius Gap, you know, the journey is still very isolated to yourself, right? And your sand bike, and you have a small base. As you're moving into the next areas, like the Hugga, or this is the Rift, right? You unlock the Buggy, and the great
We're gonna reload that real quick into
thing about
2K.
the Buggy is it allows you to start mining from your vehicle, and the resource requirement as you go further and further into the game is more intense. But the Buggy and other systems like that allow you to increase your harvest rate also.
Yep.
And this is a fantastic part, right?
Yeah.
Just moving around.
No, there
going
is
to the
not
different
another beta
resources,
weekend. The game launches next
either
Thursday.
switching
Red
yourself
Dragon.
to the turret, or if you have a friend, having the friend man the mining laser, right? And then being able to harvest resources.
Yeah, the Buggy's a multi-seat vehicle, right? So when you get to the mid-game, it's good to start crafting that, right? And then you can get out there and you can harvest. It has a huge inventory space as well, compared to like the sand bike or what the players can carry. Our philosophy of design with the game, like I've seen people asking for more inventory space on their character, but our philosophy of design for the game was that you build vehicles and they become your inventory space. You can see how big this is and how much volume it can hold. So the Buggy really is like your mining vehicle of choice as you get into the mid-game. And if you're playing with friends, someone's on the turret, someone's in the driver's seat, you can have a friend in the passenger seat as well. You can bring multiple people, but you can also just like do this alone, jump between seats. In the interaction menu, you just select, I want to drive now, I want to sit in the turret seat and mine. But I want to talk a little bit about this location, because we're in this place called the Hugga Rift. And as you can
Which
see,
is really
it's
cool
this
when they
dark
fly through the
gloom.
Hugga Rift in
It's basically a
Ornithopters.
geological ditch. And Herbert talked about this in the book. He talked about the folk of Pan and Graben. And this Graben are these big ditches, these big chasms that you have on Dune, on Arrakis. And in here, it's like the sunlight doesn't really penetrate to the bottom. And down here, there's been this ongoing war of attrition between the Atreides and the Harkonnen over this shipwreck, which is central to this area. And then as you come up out of the Hugga Rift, you come back into these other areas of the map. And it's like, it's a different style and tone to the desert. And I know people have been concerned, or at least been worried that like everything's one biome. But as you go down into the Rift, you feel it's a very different place. And shout out to our world director, Jeff, like one of his big key points about the world was making sure that we had a lot of verticality. And I think Hugga Rift is like an absolutely perfect example of how you can just keep going down and down through these galleries, and there's bases built up through the entire side.
Getting
It's just
all the
this really
resources
fun place
needed
to
in
be.
Babylonia.
It's like, make it deeper, make it deeper.
Exactly.
I remember he mentioned that.
And this is where all the lights come into play. So headlights on vehicles, personal lights on players come in. At this point, this is where you start bringing things, and yeah, it's fun.
And it's so huge because then you fly in with an ornithopter too. It's like wide, and yeah, it's really fun to explore that way too.
And the music and the setting and the atmosphere when you're down, right? You've been in the harsh desert and the Vermilius Gap with like the bright lights on you the entire time, going like from shadow to shadow to preserve water. When you get down there, like the music team's done a very good job of just setting the atmosphere.
This place is so cool to fly into.
Like,
that's our base in the distance there too. I think where we're heading. So you can see the wreckage of like the wall. You can see that's a deserter base. Like because of the war of attrition that's been happening here, some of the Atreides and Harkonnen have deserted. And
Rave lights and glow sticks, baby.
They're obviously hazardous. But now we're coming to a base that we created for this, and this is the Atreides base building set.
Yeah.
And this kind of, I think this is a
Atreides for the win.
This is a great example of what you can do outside of the square blocks that everybody was seeing in beta because they only had access to the first couple of sets.
Yeah, and what's important as you get into the mid-game, you start building up your infrastructure, and that's just as important as your equipment or your vehicles. So even if you lose a vehicle, right, like you make your Buggy and you get unlucky enough to get eaten by a sandworm, like the infrastructure will allow you to get back on your feet way quicker than that first.
Can we stop for a second and show a pro tip here? I really want to pro tip something. So, can someone go and use a chest?
Yes. Oh, you want to mention my favorite thing?
So if you go to the Wait, is that a chest? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in a chest in the game and you have a vehicle anywhere on your land claim, you can go to the top of the inventory on the left there where it says backpack. Where it says backpack on the left-hand side, whoever's driving. Up there. Yep.
there you
And
go.
click the drop down, and you can select the vehicle storage. This is a massive
What?
quality of life for getting things in and out of your vehicles.
Yes.
Because we know it's a little bit hidden. It's not the easiest thing to find. But once you know about this, it ups your quality of life in the game immensely.
Oh,
because
no
you can just
shit, man.
Drive in with a buggy full of stuff, go into your base, click any chest, click on the storage drop down, and start taking things out of the back of that vehicle.
That's
it's something
huge.
that the beta test suggested, isn't it? Like directly.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was something
Yep.
people were asking for during the closed beta, and we
Exactly.
implemented it. Yeah.
Another thing that I mentioned before, which is such a small quality of life thing, but we have that too, is you don't have to empty your chests before you can move them.
Oh, exactly.
This
yeah.
is like that's
Yes.
just a complete mind-blowing quality of life change to me. That's like so nice.
Yeah. So the game works in these phases of like, in the beginning, you need a sandbike to get off walking around, right? Then you move to the phase where you want a buggy to help you to harvest and gather resources.
Yeah, for sure,
And then you move
Babylonian.
to the phase where you want to start building your first ornithopter. And so we have an example of this here. And the vehicle building in the game is very cooperative, right? You can see that these different, we're now adding permissions to allow people to help us to work on this ornithopter. So this, these guys are all in a group. And so people can cooperatively build. And of course, I think this is the medium, the assault ornithopter, as we call it. So it's the medium tier. But the largest ornithopter, the transport ornithopter, also requires, a lot of parts and a lot of people. So it's kind of part of the way we designed this was to make sure that we had this collaborative building system in the game, both for buildings and for vehicles.
This is my favorite part of the game, just the building the
I
vehicles
love the building in
actually
this game.
physically in the world, right? Putting the pieces there, working with your friends to make all the parts of them, and then like mixing and matching the different modules to make the vehicle, fit the role that you want to use the vehicle with for that moment.
Yeah, and vehicles come with different module sets, right? So you can put inventories on some. You can, like we talked about the buggy. You can actually have a rocket turret on top of the buggy, which I think you
Exactly.
saw in the combat trailer
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
You saw the buggy firing rockets. So you can have different types of things on the different vehicles, and we'll continue to expand that post-launch as well, making the vehicles more and more useful with utility. Yeah, it's fun, right? And then I guess the other side of this is that we can start talking about variants and swatches, which is our
He's actually
customization
going to
system.
change in a second.
Yeah.
We'll actually see that.
So
there we go.
Yeah.
So this
Skits.
Atreides ornithopter.
these guys are aligned with the Atreides.
Boo. Boo.
So here we just switched out the Atreides. And a variant, just to put the distinction in place, a swatch allows you to change the color sets, but a variant allows you to change the physical visual.
The actual
so this
model,
is
yeah.
this is the shape of the Atreides. It's got the hawk-like lines. It's got the sharp angles.
Boo.
And the Harkonnen have more of an insectile kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is and you earn these variants in this case by leveling up in the factions, which is a part of the mid game, which we aren't really showing
Faction
a ton of
grind,
that
baby.
today. But as
I'm
you
going
join
Atreides.
a faction, go through their quest lines, you earn access to these kind of variants and things like that, and then you're able to use the Atreides colors and swatches. And
For anybody
variants.
who's listening who
both
might
on
be on the
vehicles
fence,
and
if you do
your
decide to make a
armor, right.
purchase,
Yes.
I'm going to give a
Vehicles,
shout out because I do have an
armors.
affiliate
You can
link down
represent
below
with your
in the,
Harkonnen clothes
yes.
running in
description
the
text of my
desert,
YouTube
yes,
video.
perhaps.
If you make a purchase through that affiliate link, I get
it's
a
important
direct
to note that
kickback.
like a lot of our philosophy around this was
Nudge,
as
nudge,
well,
wink,
like you
wink. But
create.
it is an affiliate link. Full
So let's say
disclosure.
you create a tier 4, like a mid-tier armor set, and it's like a scout armor. You can variant swap that to look like any other scout armor in the game. You can't turn it into a heavy armor or a combat armor because we want people to understand in PvP what they're fighting. But you can
that's
change
so
it into any
cool.
other visual of a scout armor, and it's the same with social clothing. It's the same with
Not
you
a
know,
traditional MMO, no, but it
obviously
is an
combat armor, and it's the same with
online
still suits,
Yeah.
which I mentioned,
game
which are
that
kind of our
can be
4
played
major
multiplayer,
armor
Hendrik.
types in the game.
And as you
Social,
mentioned, oh sorry.
No,
And
I was
that's
just gonna say
So it
social
shares
medium,
similarities
social
with a lot of
scout,
the old school
combat
MMORPGs, but
and,
it's
Still suits.
mostly a single player
And what they're showing right now
RPG
is the Vulture
that
mode
can be
in
played with
Yes.
other
the
players if you
ornithopter.
choose
So
to. It's an
ornithopters are
always
great, right?
online
'Cause you have your
game
helicopter
that has
mode
a
where you can
multiplayer
move in all
infrastructure.
directions. You can switch to the Vulture mode, and then it's more of like a glider where you're going up and down to gain speed.
Yep. Yeah, so,
Basically a airplane mode and a helicopter mode, so to speak.
yeah,
right?
sort of.
it's like a hover mode and a glide
Yeah.
mode, right?
Yeah.
And the vulture mode allows you to be more maneuverable. You see that they have a boost module. Actually, this is fun. Like when you get to too high an altitude, you start increasing your fuel consumption, which prevents people from going too high in the game. Also good to know for people who want to stay close to the ground. Yeah, and now we're flying through an area of the map known as the Shield Wall, which is on the para-northern side of the Hager Basin. We can talk about the para-directions at some point, because that's always awkward and weird. But because para-north is really south in relative terms to the map. But this is these are rocky areas, so the sandworm is less of a threat up here, but the enemies are much harder, and the resources you gather up here are much more value, right, to what you're doing. So these are areas where you harvest.
And the first time you're coming here, you don't actually have an ornithopter. More than likely, you don't, right? So then you're having to make the choice of do you bring your buggy here, which is really high, really hard to get to, or do you go with your sand bike and try to climb up the wall? So it's ultimately it's about choice, how you go to each of the biomes, and then which vehicles you bring, right? Which enable.
Because don't forget, the worm can still get you in an ornithopter.
Yeah, and this area we're in now is known as the Uldum as well, and the Uldum has a little more plant growth and a little more greenery, and that's because the Uldum is an area where they were doing experiments on some of the land, and we won't talk too much about it, but yeah, we're gonna fly over. I guess this is
our second base.
This is our second base on the Shield Wall. Yeah, so this is the
lots of
guild base. So this is further into the game. People have progressed a bit. They're probably we divide the game into 4 phases: survive, protect, expand, and control. So this would be here. You're either on the expand or the control part of the game. The sort of last 2 phases, right? So you've got a bigger guild. You're working with a larger group of people potentially. You can still play the game solo at this point. Everything just takes a little longer and is a little harder to do on your own, right? And you can still do it. You can craft these ornithopters. There's no problem. But we encourage people to play together and work together in a multiplayer game.
And we're showing off some building sets we've never shown before.
Yes.
These will be the Twitch drops.
These are Twitch drops,
exactly.
Oh,
So
there's going to be
the
Twitch
one
drops.
that are
Nudge, nudge,
criticized
wink, wink,
the
kids. If you're going to be
show
watching
that
me
wants
play,
to
I'm starting on
building
June
set,
5th with a head start
but
access.
those
Make
round,
sure you can watch on
windows
YouTube if you
and
want, but I would also
ceiling,
urge you to watch on
pieces,
Twitch
pretty much
because you're going to be able to
everything
earn
that's more
Twitch
metal than
drops.
white stone. Those are actually going to be
And I'm going to
Twitch
have to find
drops
somebody else to
that
watch
you will
because I'm going to
get,
want to
so
get
they
those
kinda
Twitch drops
expand
too.
on the existing Chome tier set, which I love them. I think they're very cool. They're
It's
really
very
cool.
heavy on the survival aspects, Hendrik.
Yeah, and you can see what we'd expect a guild base to look like, right? Lots of
I've
production
got
going on.
like
I love-
85
it was
videos in
something
the
that we were
playlist
really,
down
like,
below. I would urge you to check some of
pushy
those
on
out
in
because I
the-
got a
in
ton
the
of
game
guides
development,
talking
making sure
about it.
that the fabricators actually show the items being crafted as they craft, so you see them.
It is a
form
survival
up
game
inside
at
the
its
fabrication
core,
units.
so
And yes,
you're
I know
working your way
this
up
isn't
through the
exactly
tiers.
something from Dune lore. This is one of the places where I was like, I have to make a concession to the game. They don't have fabricators; they're not mentioned in the lore, but it's fine because it's
It
cool.
looks cool.
Rule of cool in some cases.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
this
there's-
is a vehicle fabricator, yeah.
There's also circuits. Have we ever talked about circuits before?
I don't think they have talked
Not
about
actively.
circuits.
You can
Okay.
please feel free.
They're pretty neat. It's not like as intense as like Factorio, right? Making blue science or anything like that. But you are able to set up different circuits in your base, so you can have some containers feeding into some fabricators feeding into others. You'll never have 100% automation like you would get in a factory builder game, but it does enable you as you get to mid game to start having a fair bit of automation in the game when you're playing, because water and electricity become quite a burden if you don't start upgrading your gear and the infrastructure like we were talking about before. So we introduced passive ways to get water, which is a huge help, because water in the mid and to the end game even is really important through all aspects, not just survival but also crafting.
For my fellow lore nerds out there, we call the passive water generation wind traps.
I was just about to say there are actually some wind traps on this,
Yeah.
and we've seen some while we walked by them as well. And yeah, it's just like you also see here how much bigger those refineries are. We also saw a spice refinery as well, actually. Like
Yeah, there was
the
spice
round- the round
refineries there,
tubes. Yep.
Yeah, and that we just saw a room with some decorations in it as well.
Yeah,
Like just to you can pimp up your area in a sense, like put out holograms. It was quite funny because here's a fun anecdote from development. The artist
no.
made a bunch of the artist made a bunch of pot plants for people to put in their bases, and I was like, guys, it's June.
There is no water to water those
So we have a
things
lot of holograms
in your
plants now.
buildings. Yeah,
I was like,
they
we
look
can
great
have.
though.
Then I keep saying the word holograms. Sorry, everyone. Solido projections.
Solido projections.
Solido projections of
You'd be
plants.
yelling at yourself.
Oh my god, I'd be so mad. I'd be
When he
so
said
mad
pot
if I
plants,
wasn't
my
here
mind
right
went
now.
to a different place, and then I realized he
If
meant
you
potted
like
plants.
decorations, you need to explore quite a bit. Right? We don't unlock them all.
Yes.
Go to trade posts, go to places where there are people. You can unlock tons of the stuff that you're seeing around in the
Yes.
base here.
Exactly.
You have to
My
work a
kind
little
of
bit.
You have to
garden.
work a little
Yeah.
bit
Yes.
for it. Yeah.
Like explore, find people. It's
Yeah,
really good.
and obviously these doors,
Or-
the pentashield doors and things as well. Like once you reach a certain stage in Dune, you can put shielded doors out, so you don't have to have doors that open and close.
Exactly.
And that's really useful for when you have flying.
Yeah, we
vehicles
see
roll
you,
out of
Joel,
hangars,
right,
you don't have
Bubble?
to wait
We
for
know
a
where
door
your
to
mind's
open.
at,
Some of the cool
sir.
stuff I've seen in beta is they will make a huge base, but it's kind of covering a road. So they'll open up
yep.
the middle of it and then set the permissions on the pinto shields so that you can actually drive
Public,
through it. So
yes.
you can't go into their base, but you can still go through the middle
Yes.
of their base,
Yeah.
which is nice.
It's nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Good guy players.
Good guy players, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're actually gonna go up to the roof now and build a transport ornithopter.
nice.
Great.
Which
No.
not
No.
yet. Okay, not yet.
No, we're not.
Excuse me.
We're not. We're
We're
wrong.
gonna run around the base a little
not
bit
wrong.
more.
We're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
we're still
Oh.
doing other things.
That's in. Yeah. Okay.
But
few ornithopters.
what
hovering
we'd
around.
like to do is because we're actually gonna go to a social hub later on, and we'd like to throw that to. Unfortunately, we can do only Twitch, so I'm sorry, YouTube. We'll love you over there too.
Oh, for the
It's
votes.
just our bot is being a bit difficult, so we'd like to do a poll. Throw that to Twitch chat only for today. Which of the social hubs you'd like to see? We have 2 available in the game right now.
Eric Keane, Eric Keane, Eric
right
Keane.
now.
Fuck, do I need to go over
One
there
is
Twitch and
Arcane,
vote?
The other one is Hardco.
Hang on,
And
I gotta go
you
vote.
can choose which of those you'd like to see.
I gotta go vote.
Today. So we give you like a few minutes to vote on that while our rock stars and wizards behind the scenes are preparing that poll for you if it's not running already. And yeah, we can talk a little bit.
One of the cool things that they were just showing there is the vehicle backup tool.
Yes.
Where's
I don't
the
know if
vote?
we've talked
Where's
about
the
that
poll?
on stream too much, but once you've built a sand bike or a light ornithopter, you can actually build a tool to hide it or like. What's
How do you
the real
vote?
reason, Joel?
Let's
Alright,
go with
polls
the
going on.
Richie's
Use
perfected
vote A.
miniaturization
Sure,
technology,
sure.
and the player is able to miniaturize their vehicle, and it only works for vehicles that have nothing in their inventory.
Correct. Yeah.
And
Jesus, that's a
2 types
complicated
of vehicle:
thing.
the sand bike and
Yes.
the
Why
light
can't you just
scout one.
have a
Yes.
poll where you
Yeah.
click a
Oh,
button?
we're-
We have
we're
to
flying
type a
past-
thing into chat.
Highly recommend always using it. Right when
Yes.
you're going to a location,
Yes.
land, store your vehicle.
Yes.
Don't let it get destroyed by a sandstorm.
I
Exactly.
learned that the hard way myself too, so I will never do that mistake ever again.
I see. We've gone with spoiler
Ooh.
territory here, and we're flying over the giant power station of Misatariel. Look, I don't want to talk too much about it, but we'll let people figure that out in the game.
It looks cool. From
It's my
afar, so
favorite
it's like-
location.
Me
It's-
too.
It's
Mine
really
too.
absolutely amazing.
Mine too.
And the
Mine too.
story involved in it is
So
really cool.
please look forward to it.
And there we have someone doing their vulture roll, which is very nice. Can you hit your scanner as well, whoever's flying?
I'm not sure
Really?
to do that.
Yeah, so like that's vehicles obviously get like players got hand scanners probably in the beta, but now you're up to the stage where you actually have a scanner and you're scanning entire like islands by pumping C. So the idea is that again, as you progress, everything just takes a step up in how quickly you can do things. We wanted the game to feel, well, you've put in the effort to get this vehicle, we're going to give you the convenience of being able to scan an entire island very quickly, right?
Yeah.
This is a trade post. This is the Crossroads trade post.
Look at the poll. It's super tight. I love that. Like right now, Arcane is slightly winning. So let's go,
Harco
Harkonnen.
Village is cooler.
I agree.
No,
I
Harkonnen
agree
is
that-
not
well,
cooler.
both-
We're gonna see some
Lies!
from Harko
both
no matter
are
what we do.
super
to
cool,
it.
that's
though.
true.
Both are super cool, but I do like.
Yeah,
Harkonnen
it's just
personally.
because you're an evil person and
I
you
am.
like Harkonnens.
I am just like
Something
evil
about
for
that
life.
whipping noise.
No, you know the fun part is I always try to go evil in like games where you have a choice, and then I end up
course.
good anyway.
Yeah,
like,
feel
because you
bad for
can't
the-
bring yourself to do
Feel
it.
bad for those
No.
characters,
So-
I'm
right?
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
So these are the pilots. They were disabled in the beta. You may have met one at the first trade post if you were playing.
And we're going to Arcane, by the way.
We're going to
won.
Arcane?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Okay.
we're going to Arcane.
So we're going to go and visit Arakeen. All right, that's cool. The pilot only takes cash. So you can't have credit. You have to have cash. So we're heading to Arakeen.
She doesn't use it on sunscreen, that's for sure, because she was really sunburned. Like, you know, let's just get that out there. Yes. But yeah, you need to have the cash on you as
Yeah.
well.
One of the features in the game that we haven't really spoken about too much. I mean, well, we have a bit. We've spoken, but I don't think people picked it up in the beta. Oh, here we go. Well, I'll let us arrive because this is cool.
I've never gone
This is
in the closed beta
Arcane.
to Arcane.
And as we arrive in Arakeen,
Purposefully avoided
so
this.
one of the features we have in the game is the CommuniNet system. And when a player opens their CommuniNet, they can choose radio stations to listen to in the game, a la like a Fallout game or a GTA game. And this guy, Finno Gary, he runs this trash shop, but he actually has a show on the Atreides radio. And if you listen to the show, it's his daughter talking about their adventures on how they got all this salvage that shows up.
Oh,
So it's
that's
kind of fun to just
cool.
like narratively listen. You know, we tried to connect everything in the world. This is again, I want to make this point because I feel like I see it sometimes online, and it's a little, let's say, disheartening. People, we were advertising the game and saying the word MMO,
Yeah.
and then people were like, oh, they took all that off, and we took it off because we do feel like this is a huge world completely worth exploring with lots of other people, but it's not an MMORPG, and people were getting confused by that.
Yeah.
So we took it down. But I think it's clear when you look at places like our social hubs, our exchange system, our banking system, that we have a lot of elements from those style of games here, right? So yeah, we're looking at
That
the
answers
exchange
the
right
question
now.
somebody asked earlier about, is it an MMORPG?
Players can post things on the exchange, and this is a
Kind
the
of,
banker.
but they purposefully moved away from that
The good
marketing
things
to
here is
not
you can actually
confuse people.
store,
Because they don't want
items
people
and
avoiding the
credits,
game
right?
because
So
they
say
think
you're
that you
gonna
have
take
to
a
play it.
long
MMO,
vacation, you're
'cause you
worried
can
about
100%
your
play
base
it
getting destroyed
solo
for some
like I
reason.
am.
You can actually fly
Although
to
I
Arch
will
and dump a
admit
bunch
that
of
watching
stuff
some
in
of
here.
these bigger
That's like the
bases
thing,
being
is like,
built
what the
like,
great
makes me
thing here
go,
is with his mustache.
it would be cool,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
also
Expecting it
fantastic.
to
do
go
some
in a
co-op
mustache.
stuff, but I just don't want to manage people, so.
We've all seen the
Fantastic mustache. You also pay taxes here.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll,
because you need to, like, for the bigger
Gotta keep your
sub.
shield
Like I
up.
said, I'll make my
actually
siege
need to
known to
also
everybody when we get
have,
started, and if people
your
want to join the
taxes paid
siege, they
to
can,
the
but I don't want to, I'm not going to go the route of fantasy
this is
people.
the
Emperor.
imperial
I'm
consulate,
okay with
as
it
we call
taking
it.
longer.
This is where you go to pay your taxes to the
By the way, this you have to go here to pay your
the
taxes on your
first
sub-fiefs.
sub-fief console that you place on Arrakis, the basic one that you place in the starting area, you don't have any taxes to pay on that. But once you get a bit further into the game and you start building bigger bases, you pay taxes. Once you start expanding that land claim, which you do through these land claim extenders, you start paying more tax. So the idea is that the larger guilds who have more members, who are more capable of, like, you know, achieving things in the game, they have a higher tax rate because they're building out larger spaces. And that, you know, that's our way of making it fair for people who only play solo as well, like, so they don't have as much tax to pay.
The other important thing about the cities is that's where you really progress through the faction storylines, right? So here's where you're going to come and officially join the Atreides or join the Harkonnens.
Atreides,
and, you know, start vying for the land's red system and getting involved in the politics of the entire world.
And this is where the advanced trainers are as well,
Yeah.
for people who want to progress past the basic level of training in their particular chosen classes.
Except for Derek.
Oh, Derek, the planetologist, he's everywhere.
He's just traveling around.
He's everywhere.
He's a wandering mentor. You can find him
uh,
anywhere.
Yeah, he's here. He's there.
He's
He's
there.
He's everywhere.
everywhere.
No, but-
Derek Shinar. Okay, no, enough. Sorry.
It's okay. No, but you have contracts here, of course, as well, and
contracts,
specific
yeah.
vendors, so they have a lot of things to sell as well.
Yes, and the main story brings you to these locations as well.
Yes. So now we actually get a glimpse at the overland map.
Yes,
which
so-
is
So you can
one
use
of
the
things.
pilots in the trade post to fly to the hubs like we showed,
Mm-hmm.
and you use those same pilots to get back. But once you have your own ornithopter, you can just fly to the edge of the Haga Basin map, and you'll get a prompt asking you if you'd like to go to the overland map.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the overland map.
Oh.
And this is, again, one of the things that I think kind of breaks us away from your standard survival game. This is where we have the ability to infinitely expand this game, where we have multiple maps that players can go to. I think this is where you go to reach the deep desert. This is where you go to reach several of the story maps.
I've never seen
Right now
this.
we've landed on a fuel deposit. We're just picking up a bit of fuel, refueling our ornithopter on there. We're able to expand here for a long time, and this is kind of part of what, again, we wanted to do to make this a coherent universe, right? And make Dune feel like something that, you know, we're going to be working on and adding to for a long time.
So post-launch, there will be new locations that show up here.
Yes.
We'll have events that have locations here for
Oh.
short durations, right? For
Yep.
to shake things up, and you know, eventually when we release huge content drops, they'll be accessible through the overland.
Through
map.
the overland map,
Exactly. One other thing that you can find in the overlap map, which also goes into the story, that we really would like to talk a little bit more about, because we haven't, as you mentioned, it takes a while to also get the story going. So people during the beta weekend haven't actually seen
Right.
much of that.
Yeah.
So via the overlap map, you can also access some of these story dungeons, and we actually do have some footage of one of those dungeons that you and Joel and Scott can probably give a little bit of context what we've
Okay.
seen.
Part of Act 2.
So here we're not going to spoil too much of the story, but this is kind of the theme of Act 2, right? You've moved from a survivor doing the trials, now you're getting involved in the politics.
The kitten is back.
Yeah, so there's a lot more interaction with NPCs, dialogue, there's a lot more cinematics, and a lot of locations outside the Hoggy Basin that you'll be going to.
One of my favorite characters too.
Yeah, she's
I love her. Everyone does.
In the
kind of.
Cone of Silence.
We didn't mention the Cone of Silence, but you're inside the Cone of Silence here, and the game actually dampens all the sound outside of it when you enter.
She is hot.
To be distributed in the water supply of
And she calls you kitten. I'm already a big
Chore
fan.
murky for law people who understand.
What is that, by the way? I actually don't know what
The
that
Assassin's
is.
Handbook describes certain poisons. Chore murky is poison in the drink.
That's actually something I didn't know. Like I was wondering about that earlier. Like I didn't know what that term is.
So you see we have a dialogue system in the game where you can make choices based on several of the things that you've done in the game as well. Your background at the start has some payoff here.
this water shipper is wealthy.
Again, it's not like, we're not making an Obsidian RPG with all of the choices that something like that has, but we're doing a level of this that's above and beyond what most survival games do, I think.
And you will be interacting with some Dune characters that people
Well, look
are
at her
familiar
last
with.
name.
Yeah.
June fans probably recognize
Please her, she'll
already
have to speak to
that last
management.
name.
Yep.
All right, so we're skipping ahead here. We've jumped to the part of the mission where you're heading towards the Water Shipper's Mansion, which is in the Imperial Basin just outside of Arakeen. The player is being sent there to assassinate and poison this water shipper on behalf of the Lara Tuek. And so we come to this new level on the Overland map.
Yeah, so your job is to infiltrate,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, she's talking and explaining the mission, but I can't hear it, so I'm just... But
One of the things we wanted to do is make sure all the abilities still work in these. So it is
Yes.
still very sandboxy.
yeah,
There will always be multiple approaches. You
Yeah.
know, if you have a Shigawire Claw, you can use that to grappling hook over some areas. If not, then you're gonna have to be a little bit more stealthy and avoid the searchlights.
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where our philosophy is like we give people all these tools, but it's a sandbox. Play the way you want to play. Like here, it's we have to find a guy called Yargan, who's her contact. And so like it's like we're quite nice to people. You might get spotted, but you can escape the lights quickly.
That's the one we
I'm
found
not,
here.
you can read the dialogue here. It's fun. One of those ones.
And again, depending on your background, they actually get different choices to.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's
to the
flavor
dialogue.
dialogue, but
Character
yeah.
creation is important.
Why don't we just have this
Yeah.
conversation in that spotlight over there?
This he's a grumpy guy.
I agreed to help Alara with this.
I'd be grumpy too if I had to wear those glasses all day.
Scrapes back in the day. But if you get caught, we ain't met.
Especially when he talks about the place.
Got it?
You'll appreciate this option.
Good. Then ask your question.
It's like, so which background?
Guarded like a
It's guarded like a
princess.
Which
princess's
background do you
virtue.
have to get that option now?
But there's also a back
That one's
entrance.
for everyone for free.
That one's for everyone.
Okay, I have it in video too.
But tis.
But there's so many little Easter eggs and fun things that you also wrote, like especially also for like weapon
weapon
descriptions and
descriptions,
things.
item
It's super
descriptions.
fun. Like everything's connected. Like for those.
Flairstick coming in with a
you to do,
$5
like,
super
Lord
chat
and
says
without
thanks for
doing
the
those, we'll
tips
find a lot
and
of
tricks and the
connections,
time you
but
put
also
in to
for the
guide me
ones
unknowing. Hope you can keep
Yeah.
on top of
super fun
things.
to just
Well, this is
He's also
one of the
explaining
major games
the
I'm
different
playing
ways
this year,
that
and I'll
you
be
can
putting a
approach
lot of
this
time
quest
into Dune
right now.
Awakening.
So he's sort of explaining to you,
Thank you
there's
for that
like two
super
paths
chat.
that you can
Appreciate
take.
it.
Like, you don't have to go this
Flairstick.
way, you don't have to go that way. Here's how you can get in, there's how you get in, right? So as a player, you can approach, again, in kind of that sandbox approach. It's like, again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not an immersive sim where you have
Yeah,
like the
no.
Dishonored level of,
Yeah.
but you can definitely find alternate paths into the mansion to achieve your mission. And I think that like a shout out to the story content team with Bernard and the boys, as I call them. They've done a great job with these, setting them up. And here's what Scott was talking about, where I've set the game up in this way. I'm a Benny Gesserit. I'm just going to stun this guy, and then I'll be able to walk past him, and he won't even notice me. He won't call up. He won't call the guards because he doesn't see me, right? And so you can use your abilities, your skills that you picked up in the game to just pass through these areas, and yeah, it's kind of fun, right? And we just wanted to show that we have more than just the basic survival game. There's way more going on here.
Yeah. especially like I think it takes about if you let's assume you ignore everything else because there's a lot of choices for you how you want to approach Dune Awakening and what there's to do. But let's assume you're only going for the main story and like those cinematics and things. So it takes you, I did talk to Niels about it as well. It takes about 30 hours until the story really gets going.
Yeah, if you're playing by yourself, just experiencing all the survival elements and going at it alone, probably 30 hours to get to part 2.
Yeah, it's deliberately like. So I'm not defensive about Act 1, but the first part of the game is deliberately somewhat light, just to give people that, like, learn the world, acclimatize yourself, like follow up on the Fremen.
30 hours in Act 1 is big.
Super interesting, and then we start introducing and layering the politics of the universe and more and more of this stuff, and more of your personal story, like what's going on, why are you the one being asked to do this, what's happening, right?
And ultimately, it is a survival game first, right?
Yes.
So the player needs to learn how to survive in Arrakis, right? And it's a very harsh environment. There's a lot of mechanics to figure out, and then you have to make your way through there and figure out how to get outside of the Haga Basin right before you can experience more of the politics and
poison the
intrigue that are
water
going on.
supply.
Exactly.
Here we
and
go.
I really love that we have, I mean, the beginning of the game is kind of story driven, right? You get context to where you, well, a little bit of context what's actually happening. You have a person that talks to you and helps you at the beginning, and then as you mentioned, it goes more into learning the actual mechanics and the tutorialization of the game, and we give you time to get a bit acquainted with everything, or not everything, but a lot of the things, like the basic mechanics, and then we like approach you again with the story a bit later on, and I really love that too.
I love this guy, but we're cutting now because we're not going to spoil too much of what's going on.
No, exactly. So obviously we don't want to show too much. There's more to this dungeon.